again, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us at the event Shaping Future Intervention Logic with Current and Future Indicators. We are very much excited to kick off the process on the discussion on the intervention logic. Why do we call it process? Well, the regulation is still in draft form, and there might be some things which still some details which will be changed. And also process because it will require from us a shift in the mindset. It's why shift in the mindsets? Because now this shift is based on the performance-based approach, which we all is coming. That will affect our programming, our implementation, and we also should remember what Interact is about and go back to think what can we really change and what can Interact change and focus on that. And these are core questions for the intervention logic, but we will dive into it, do the whole intervention logic into details. But let me first introduce all my colleagues who are here with me today. It's Besiana, Ninka, and Phil Heaton, who work with me on the intervention logic, but also my colleagues Greg and Yasmina are here, who kicked off the performance-based approach and are working with a working group. So together we try to invite them as well to connect the dots between BBA and indicators and bring these two initiatives also together. And we are extremely happy that a lot of colleagues from the European Commission and from the evaluation unit are with us today for exchange and enlighten us and helping and sharing their view on certain points. We very warm welcome to Maury Gilland, who will give us some sparkling ideas in the morning, who will open the whole event. Then we are also very grateful for the support of Ivanka Lakova. Thank you, Ivanka. We have been discussing with you the intervention logic since the beginning, and you have always been very patient with us. We are very grateful for your support. And a very warm welcome also to the colleagues from the evaluation unit. It's great to have you here with us today. It's Thea Kellwieser, Mate Tass, and Chris Magnus. So you see, we came with a lot of people. It's an important topic, and we hope we will have some fruitful discussions today. So the idea of today is to strengthen the understanding of the new intervention logic, to enhance the understanding, to clarify all the different components of an intervention logic, and see how are they interlinked. So how is a general objective, specific objective measures, what are the different components of an intervention logic, and how are they interlinked. And last but not least, finally, at the last session, we will talk about the indicators of the current period. So if we look at the agenda, we start with looking into the future. How will the future intervention logic look like? We will have some questions and answers here and discussions. And for the last 45 minutes or an hour, we will focus on the common indicators. And finally, we will also give you an outlook. What are our plans for next year? What kind of events did we plan? Yes, that's the plan for today, for the next 3 hours. But before we start digging in and zoom into the different elements of the intervention logic, let me stop sharing and give the word to Maury Gilland. Thank you again that you found some time to be with us here today, and also to be so kind to inspire us for this meeting and give us some messages for the drafting of the intervention logic.
Thank you very much, Daniela.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction. Whether or not I am inspiring or not, maybe you have to wait until after the words. I don't know. But no, thank you for the chance to say a few words right at the start of today's session. I wanted to underline that even taking account of the very different nature of how the regulations have been presented this time round, and how the whole multi-annual financial framework indeed has been presented and structured, perhaps the changes to the intervention logic and the use of the performance-based approach are the ones that will possibly have the biggest impact of all on the Interreg programs, at least at the level of delivery. We're aware of this on our side, and that explains why we have been putting a lot of effort in, as Daniela mentioned at the beginning, together with Interact, in order to explain these ideas, explain these concepts, explain how this would work. And I wanted to just take a quick moment to emphasize two specific elements in relation to this. Firstly, and again, Daniela, you anticipated this a little bit, we're still at the very start of this entire process. The discussions that we have today and the ideas and concepts that are presented will go into much more detail than either the Council or the European Parliament has reached so far. The Council is still very much at a question and answer stage in relation to the draft regulations or the proposed regulations that the Commission has tabled, and the Parliament hasn't even started yet. So there is still a long road to travel before we have finalised regulations for the post-27 period. And for that reason, it's important that I underline that this whole process, this kind of discussion today, is very much an informal assistance process. It does not replace the process of negotiating the regulations themselves, and it does not anticipate the final outcome of those negotiations either. The aim is very much to explain what is on the table, to put in front of you from an Interreg perspective what can be done in this kind of process. And one of the reasons it's particularly important to do that, even at this early stage of the overall process, is that the Interreg programs in 21-27 are further advanced in their implementation and execution than we've ever been at this stage of a programming period. There are programs which have essentially already allocated all of their funding to projects, already contracted that funding, and therefore we have something that is unusual and something that is often a real luxury in the implementation of Interreg programs. We have time. We have a situation where programs are looking around and going, well, I don't need to be running around like a headless chicken trying to select projects in order to absorb all my funding and meet my N+3 target. Oh, I've actually got time to sit and think. And that's exactly what we're trying to take advantage of in this kind of event. The second point I wanted to underline, and I suspect Ivanka and colleagues will be making this point during the morning, is that we already have a performance dimension in the 21-27 period. Now, it's not linked to payments. That aspect is certainly new, but programs should already be working now on the basis and rationale of performance. And if you look at the 21-27 regulations, that element is included throughout the existing regulations. To put it very simply, what are we delivering? What are we achieving? Those are the types of questions that we're trying to get more focus on, rather than what are we spending each individual Eurocent on. So there's already, or there should be, a shifting mindset in the implementation of 21-27. And it's essentially building on that we want to try and explain how post-27 can and should work. In other words, all of this shouldn't be as scary as it might seem at first. And with those very quick words, I will stop there. We'll let you get into the heart of the matter with the rest of the session. And I hope that you have a very productive and fruitful morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Murray. Very much appreciated. Thank you for your time and for these words. Have a good day as well. I know you cannot be with us the whole event, but thank you very much for being here and for these encouraging words in the beginning. So, yes, as you mentioned, let's immediately dig into the intervention logic. Before, maybe one sentence before, as it comes to you, the participants here today, I want to point out that some of you have already participated maybe in IKF in the design session and have heard already some details about intervention logic. Some others are maybe part of the performance-based group and have had the possibility also to hear something about intervention logic already. And then there are others who have not participated in any of these events. So that's why also please be patient with us with the presentation. We really try to come up with, we start from the basics, and we, as also explained, we are not coming up with something new. A lot of things, this is the status quo, what we have now. And we want to make this session very, very much interactive. We will go now through the different components of the intervention logic. And if you have any questions related to general objective or to any other parts, please raise your hand immediately. My colleagues will stop me in case I don't see you. And we take the question on board so that not all of the information is left to the end of the after we have gone through all the elements. So please, in case there is anything, raise your hand and open your microphones. We have decided not to use Slido on purpose. We wanted to see some faces, make it a bit interactive and lively as it can get. Yeah, then let's start with a few words to the framework. The Interreg framework operates outside of the National Regional Plan. I think everybody knows that by now, and is structured into into chapters. There is a strong focus on performance, with funding tied to concrete and measurable output and results. What is also new is that that the system of intervention logic should be simplified by the single list of intervention fields with common indicators and meaning output indicators and result indicators, which you can find in Annex 1 of the performance regulation. But we will go to that in a minute when we come. What is also new, finally, that programming and monitoring and reporting is unified under one single legal act. So what you see on this slide now are the different components of an intervention logic. We now we zoom in each of them and try to explain what is the definition in the regulation, what do we know, what don't we know to the different components, how are they interlinked, how can they be combined. Tama, can you please? Thank you. Yes. So let's start with the intervention logic. What do we know about the intervention strategy? The intervention strategy is what the program aims to achieve, should tell us what is the program aiming to achieve and how is it going to be done. It has to be included in the Interreg plan chapter, and it refers to the overall plan and strategy. It's based on the needs assessment and needs analysis. So you carry out a needs analysis, you do a gap analysis, and based on that, you develop an intervention strategy and the intervention strategy should also identify the different measures. And finally, these measures should then explain how they contribute to general and specific objectives. Might sound a bit confusing, but it will get clearer as we come to the next slide. So what does that actually mean? When you are carrying out your needs assessment, how should you come to the development of the different measures? You begin after you did your needs assessment and you have the different challenges of your program, you have them on the table. You begin with an honest discussion within your program. What are the real issues? What are the issues which are reoccurring in our program? Where are the problems where we really can make a change? I mean, if after you did the needs assessment, you might come up with, I don't know, I shoot now 50 different challenges, and then you have to decide and discuss among with your colleagues what are the challenges where we can make an impact, where Interreg can make a change, and select these challenges and try to come up with a strategic decision. Okay, let's focus out of this bunch of problems, challenges we have in our area. Let's focus on a reasonable number of challenges which we can change, where we have an impact, and this changes then these challenges you translate. You translate into measures. That's the way. So it needs an honest discussion with your colleagues in the program, where to focus, where is the change, where we in Interreg can make a significant input to the border area. Okay, so after you let's start then with the first component, a general objective. We all know it's fund related. However, Interreg programs may select any of the 5 general objectives. When you read it, you might come to the conclusion, okay, only ERDF applies to us, but no, you can select any of the 5 general objectives, and you also, when you build up your program, you don't have to only select one, but you can select more than one general objective. Of course, that should be based on your needs assessment, on the measures you have identified. And each general objective may then be pursued by one or more specific objectives. And here we come into more details in a second. That's all about general objective. I think that's still clear. It gets another important component is the specific objective. The specific objectives are more detailed and under a harmonized framework. So that's offering us a bit of more flexibility than in this period. The specific objectives are specified in the regulation under the articles. You see it here in the National Regional Plan 3A. You find 10 different specific objectives, and in 3C you find 6 different, that make 16 different specific objectives where you can select from. Plus, we also have the 3 Interreg specific objectives. If we have summarized them here on the slide, the first 2 ones, we know them: better cooperation, a safe and more secure Europe, and new is more and resilient regions bordering Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. What is also new compared to this period is that now we don't have any thematic concentration on with specific objectives. So you have no limitations to a certain amount of specific objective, but you can select per measure 1 or more specific objectives, as the regulation says. But now here comes the buzz. The text is it's 1 or more specific objectives, but the program authorities should choose 1 specific objective per measure then, so not more, which to which the specific objective, which primarily to which the measure primarily contribute. So also the Interreg template more or less asks you to select only 1 specific objective per measure. So do the colleagues from the Commission want to come in here and give some further details?
Not that I think is necessary, but...
Okay, good. Any questions from the participants? Very well, then we move on to the measures. Measure is one of the most important components in the intervention logic. Here we put you down the definition of the measures, which you can find in the different in the National Regional Plan and also in the performance regulation.
Excuse me?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry. Just for a clarification, Chiara from Italy, Slovenia. So as many measures we select, we have to have also the same number of specific objectives then?
Yes. Yes. You need per measure, you need 1 specific objective.
So it's right the opposite than the thematic concentration we had in this period. Okay, thank you.
Maybe just to come in. So you can have 2 measures, 2 different measures can relate to the same specific objective. So measure 1 can contribute to specific objective 1, but measure 2 can also contribute to specific objective 1. So I don't know if when you were saying that you need to have the same number of specific objectives as measures, you can in a way reuse specific objectives for more than 1 measure, as we will see in to give a spoiler, the diagram that Danny has prepared, Danny and Bassiana have prepared for later.
Yes,
or maybe,
I think.
Can I step in just quickly? Or maybe the more correct way of thinking about it is I can have more than 1 measure contributing to a given specific objective. I can have 1, I can have 2, I can have 3. So that's the way of thinking about it. The measure is contributing to a specific objective, and there can be more than 1 measure contributing to a specific objective.
Thank you.
Yes. As Phil said, we will show a diagram in the after we have gone through all the different elements. Maybe then it's a bit clearer. I also like to visualize things, and then you see how the different components are interrelated. So that when you hear it now, sometimes it might be a bit confusing. Okay. But then let's move on to the measures. As we said, there are two different definitions. We just wanted to explain why is there a slight difference in the different in the national regional plan and in the performance regulation. This is due to the fact that the performance regulation covers the entire EU budget, so it has a broader scope, whereas the national and regional plan is excludes certain elements, like, for example, the outermost region, and has a bit of a more narrow scope. But for us, the national regional plan applies, and so that means that a measure is a reform or an investment. What else do we know about the measure? So, as I said, it's a reform or investment. There is not a fixed number of measures required in the regulation, so you can, based on your needs assessment, you translate them into measures, and it's up to your needs assessment and your focus, what you want to change with how many measures you would like to come up. So it's an important building block in the intervention strategy. When it comes to interlinkages, how is it linked to? It's in the performance regulation in Article 14, it says that each measure is shall include at least one intervention field. So at least one, that means in theory, per measure, you can have more intervention fields. We will look at the intervention fields, which you can find in the performance regulation in Annex 1 in a minute, and explain it, the intervention fields, in more detail. What is also what we can also see, what is also required in the Interreg plan is that you provide a description of measure and how are they linked to the objectives, milestone targets, and indicative dates of completion. So that is what we know so far. Any immediate questions? We will give you some examples of what an intervention field, what a measure could be, and how the intervention field look like after we went through all the components. I see a question. Yes, forward, please. Nicoletta.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I couldn't switch off the unmuting, the muting function. So thank you so much, Nicoletta Horváth, Managing Authority for Couple CBC programs in Hungary. And we more or less understand the logic, but do I capture the essence of the whole mindset is that we somehow in the next perspective, we lose the notion of getting very big variety of projects. So we somehow not only streamline the processes, but somehow streamline and put in boxes the content of the projects, because the Interreg has this essence of having a very big variety of projects within one call for proposal, within one specific objectives, even if we know or knew the aim of the project itself. I have that kind of feeling now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Yes, you're right. We should focus on what Interreg can really change. So, I mean, we tend a bit. We have the tendency to show, oh, we are great. We can change the world. We can do from A to Z. But let's rather focus on a few elements where we really have an impact, where we can show what we can do, and where we can address the stakeholders on the ground, where we can influence them. Maybe Ivanka, you would like to come in here as well?
Maybe, sorry, thanks a lot. Maybe I can step in to address the elephant in the room. And Nicoletta, your question is very salient and very relevant. And I know that the tendency for us to think in the Interreg world is exactly as Daniela said, we want to change everything and we want to touch on everything because most of our actions are bottom up, and we have certain leeway in using some projects because they are a nice emanation of what we are trying to achieve, even if they are not necessarily laser focused on what we want to change or what we want to contribute with in a border region or in a bigger functional area. So this is the thing that we want to upgrade and change, is that we start doing actions and things that are really contributing to changing something and to improving the life of people, or removing obstacles or alleviating administrative hurdles that people have. And if a project looks very nice but doesn't really contribute to why we do what we do, then we forget about it. And I know that this is a very difficult paradigm shift to do, because over the years we have the Interreg community, when I say we have operated like this, but we need to start shifting a bit this mindset of I'm only going to concentrate on what I know I can actually de facto change, and what I cannot change through my actions, I'm not going to do it just because they're nice and cozy. That's a bit, and that's why I'm saying the elephant in the room, because it would be good that we all collectively start this paradigm shift. It will take time, but we need to start it. And thanks for bringing up that very important question. Over. I see Mate has a hand raised as well.
Yeah, sorry, just a short feedback. Thank you so much. And it's important that it was confirmed, because we are about to start the programming exercise and we have to, share the knowledge and to shape the mindset also with the regions, because we will actively involve the regions in the programming exercise. So we have to teach them and share this new paradigm or shift to new paradigm. Thank you so much.
Yes, I just wanted to complement what you were just discussing right now, and also to reply to the question raised from a little bit different angle. I think your understanding is correct that the unit of analysis, to put it so, or the unit of planning is a little bit different compared to what we are used to from the current and previous programming periods. Because here we really have to define the measures which are a little bit more concrete than what we used to do in the programs. And what substantiates this, what I'm saying is that for each measure, we will have to clearly identify, on the one hand, the costing. So we will need to know more in detail what we want to do. And on the other hand, the output deliverable. So whether this leaves less freedom or more freedom to authorities to do what they wish to do, I'll leave it up to you to have this consideration. It's a way how you design your program, and I think we all know that there is a tendency to leave the description currently, to leave the actions description fairly general and open to facilitate implementation later down the road. This may not be so obvious in the next programming period, due to the nature how the programs have to be designed and put together based on the measures. Probably this requires more strategic thinking upfront.
Thank you for clarifying. I hope it's a bit clearer now, Nicoletta.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then nevertheless, we have no specific information on RRF functioning as such, but we can imagine what kind of obstacles they face within a member states, and not talking about how difficult to prepare a program where more capitals and more regions are involved. So it's basically shifting from a program idea to already pre-identified projects, especially in the long border regions with a dedicated amount, which is not that big in case of Hungary, definitely. So it's basically, it will be a big challenge for us, I can tell. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, it's going to be a process which will take some time, I think, and that's why we are also starting early so that the ideas trickles down and we can start working on it. Yes, then let's move on to the next important component. It's the intervention field. It's a predefined EU category used for the supported activities. You can find it in the Annex 1 of the performance regulation. On the bottom, you can see how it looks like. Policy area, you will not find anything about policy area in the regulation, but the purpose is more or less so that you can you will be guided how to find the most appropriate intervention field for the measure. The purpose of the intervention fields is also to use it for budget tracking and for performance monitoring. You see also the different abbreviation here for climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation and resilience, environment, and social objectives. With a certain amount of percentage of 0, 40 or 100. So maybe the colleagues of the evaluation unit can explain to us, when we are doing programming, do we need to consider certain, do we have in the mind that we have to reach certain percentage, or we can select the different intervention fields based on the measure, or how should that work? Maybe you could elaborate a bit on that, Mate. And
well, I will invite Chris, maybe, if you agree, to come in.
Yes.
Chris, are you around?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm around.
Yeah, okay.
I was looking for the right buttons. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So if I understand your question correctly, it's more linked to the freedom that you would have to select interventions fields on the basis of this description of your measure. Is that correct?
Yes, and also the like to explain a bit what is the background of the percentages here, and do we, when we do the programming, do we need to consider to select them in a way? Okay, I have to reach a certain amount, 40%, or how is it? How is that thought?
So indeed, there's the ambition that the measures and the interventions and projects would contribute to certain objectives, horizontal objectives that run throughout or across the entire MFF. So that's something that you always have to take into account when selecting, or first when designing the measures, but then also in selecting the appropriate intervention fields to support those measures. Now, the percentages there, they are based mostly on current experience. So how current operations are contributing to these different objectives. So that's a bit of background for these relatively round numbers. I think this is also from a perspective of simplification to have not too complicated system of percentage setting. Now this also touches upon the question probably of the climate contribution, climate and environment spending target for Interreg. So I will maybe anticipate questions on this topic. The regulation at this point in time is not entirely clear on how Interreg should contribute to this spending targets. So it's true that in Annex 3 of the performance regulation, Interreg is not mentioned. Now, at the same time, so the overall percentage that has been set for the MFF and then the additional percentage that has been set in the context of the NRP plans is based on a benchmark, which is based on the current expenditure in the current programs. And this, of course, also includes Interreg for the time being. So we're a bit faced with a conundrum there that will need to be solved in the legislative process. So for the moment, yeah, it's still a bit unclear, but I think it should be clear to everybody that it's an ambition that runs across the entire MFF, which of course also includes the Interreg allocations. Yeah.
Thank you. Here we have a question from Steph. Yes, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Steph from Flanders, the Netherlands. It's actually not a question, just something I wanted to point out as a reaction to what the previous speaker said. So I understand that we as the Interreg community are also expected to contribute to the climate goals and social goals. But it's the aim of the European level to track this by checking which intervention fields are chosen and how they contribute. I just want to point it out that for Interreg, intervention field 142 about member states cooperation network will be very interesting for our measures, but this intervention field does not at all is counted as contributing to climate and social goals, whereas the underlying measures for sure to a large extent will be there. But I just want to avoid the situation that we all want for the content of our measures, use intervention field 142 extensively because it fits our programs, but we would be refused to do this because there are officially no contributions to these climate change and social goals. I just want to point out this challenge.
Thank you, Steph, for pointing that out. I'm sure that the colleagues all noted it, and I don't know if there's still room to change that, but thank you for pointing it out, and I think message received. Yeah. Yes, Mate, please.
Yeah, although we are not invited here to interview, maybe it's useful if we come in. Point taken, and it's a very important comment. Now, a little bit on background. There were a few discussions in the Commission before finalizing this list, and I must share that getting some cooperation intervention fields in the list was not an easy job. So we are happy that at least we have this 142, but then it creates the issue what you just raised. And this links to the intervention made by Chris that we are still unclear regarding the requirement for the Interreg programs and about their obligatory contribution to the climate objectives in terms of the amounts. And here we come to the 0, 40, 100% coefficients. Actually, the coefficients are not new. You know them very well from the current and previous programming period. They will continue to operate the same way. But indeed, how much the coefficients will drive you to select an intervention field, or rather it's going to be the scope, the title of the intervention field. This will depend on the question of contribution of Interreg to this figure, which will be clarified hopefully later down the road. The list is certainly not final. What we hear from the Council negotiations is that many member states are asking for technical discussion on this. And in this respect, it's very important that you make this comment also for us, that we keep it on our list, and we keep it on the agenda for internal discussions when we touch this list and all the comments we receive from delegations. Over.
Thank you, Mate, for this clarification. Ivanka?
Thanks a lot. I wanted to step in as well, even though Mate covered it very, very well. The point raised by Steph is very important. It's great as well to know what Mate explained, that it's thanks to their work that we even have it in the list of intervention fields. But I also want to add one thing. Do not feel compelled, the programs, to only use this. And I know, again, this has to do with the way we've been operating as well up until now. There are plenty of other intervention fields as well that are absolutely salient and relevant for what the Interreg programs can do. For instance, if I look at Annex 1 of the Performance Regulation, 137, volunteering, education and skills volunteering. This is typically an indicator that can be taken out, and it's a very performance-oriented one as well. So in this annex, and let's hope what Mate was saying, in the legislative process, this can change and others can be added, or I don't know how it will be driven from now in the whole process. But think large, that this Annex 1, there are many other intervention fields and indicators that where Interreg is very good at, and I want to reiterate one thing that More keeps bringing up often, is some of the things that we do in Interreg, we've never thought about them as reform, but they are stepping stones for reform. So we also need to label the different activities that we do in Interreg probably differently, because some of the aspects that we're trying to change and trying to alleviate have the symbols of a reform. So think for all the programs, think about this and think large when you're using Annex 1 as a menu of options. Thanks, and over.
Thank you, Ivanka, for the further clarification. Phil, yes. And then Clarice.
Yeah, hi Danny. Just bringing attention to a question that it was posted in the chat. So Monica, would you like to? I think it would be nice if people can voice their questions to the whole room. So Monica, are you able to share that question with us on the microphone?
Yes, thank you very much. I hope it works now, because first I had some problems with the sound. This is why I posted the question into the chat. Yeah, I think coming back also to the knowledge fair, it was raised that there might be the possibility also to actually assign not only one intervention field to a single measure. So, but I don't know whether it would make it actually too complicated, because this could be actually an option then to assign both the Interreg specific objective, like the better cooperation governance, plus an additional intervention field, which is a more thematic one, which is also then linked to, for instance, climate change percentage objectives. So yeah, would you actually see this possibility or even advise to do so? But then as a consequence, we would then also need to actually assign, I would assume, also output and result indicators to both intervention fields, which would make the intervention logic, of course, more complicated and more complex.
Thank you, Monica. Yes, in theory, you can have, as it's mentioned per measure, at least one intervention field. And if you select the intervention field, then it's, as you said correctly, you need to choose per intervention field one output indicator and at least one corresponding result indicator. This possibility is there, and we will also show it then. This complexity then in the visual.
Eccoci. Ciao. Ciao.
if to advise to do it, I would rather ask my colleagues from the Commission, would you advise to do that?
Yeah, I think we have to come in here. Now, what you explained is all relevant and all valid, but I would mention even one more thing. And if you check the Interact Plan template in the annex of the regulation, there we see that the intervention field is used for the costing. So if you decide to use more than one intervention field for a measure, it also means that you are required to associate costs to all those intervention fields. The idea is not different from the way how we are currently using the intervention fields. For each type of action, you can have one or more intervention fields assigned, but you have to indicate the allocation. And the underlying reason for that is that when we do the analysis of the intervention fields and the allocation assigned to the intervention fields, we do not want to double count anything. So always have to come to 100% of the allocation. Now this logic is a bit reversed because we don't speak about indicative allocation by intervention field, but about estimated cost of measures by intervention field. So again, this justifies that you cannot assign more than one intervention field to the same cost estimate. And then the rest, as Daniela explained, applies. That then you have to also select an output indicator for each intervention field. Now, whether we advise this or not, I mean, it's really up to you. From a monitoring perspective, it's always better to be as granular as possible. On the other hand, you will immediately understand that then you have to do the costing for the two or more. And then when it comes to the payment triggers from the EU budget, you will have to demonstrate the fulfillment of more output than if you only select one intervention field. So these are the implications.
Thank you, Marta, for the clarifications. We have another question, Clarice.
Yeah, good morning. I hope you hear me. Yeah,
yes, perfect.
Haris Lepasi from Inter-Baltic Sea Region program. I first of all, I would like to thank so much for all these clarifications because it helps a bit, the understanding of the whole logic. And special thanks to Steph for bringing up this painful issue of intervention field number 142, which is also very relevant for us. And to take it a bit further, apart from the problem with the coefficients and the contribution to climate, biodiversity, and social goals, that it is zero for this intervention field. One other problem is that each intervention field is connected to specific output indicators and result indicators. And this is why also for us, also for many transnational programs, this intervention field is the most relevant because we already work with these output indicators in the current program. And we feel that this is very relevant also for the future if we continue like this. So the problem with selecting other intervention fields is that the output indicators or the result indicators are very specific for us, and we can't really work and we cannot really restrict our projects also in the future to work and contribute to those output indicators or result indicators. So the question is if there is the possibility to, okay, we can select another intervention field that contributes also to those coefficients, but to connect it with output indicators or result indicators of 142, if this would be a solution. Thank you very much.
Can I reply?
Yes, please.
Or to you and Daniela. I think the performance regulation is very clear in that respect. Article 14, paragraph 2a says that by definition you should or you are expected to use the output indicator linked to the intervention field of what you picked. But if appropriate, you can select another output indicator linked to another intervention field. So this was your question, whether you can use the output indicators assigned to intervention field 142, even in cases where you decide to use another intervention field, and the reply to this is yes.
But if well justified, yeah.
If appropriate. Now, I mean, the choice of intervention fields and output indicators, especially the output indicators as targets, that will be one of the most important discussion between the program authorities and the Commission before adopting the plan.
Are you satisfied with the answer?
It's just a matter of what appropriate justification means. So, but at least we have an answer because this is also one question that really comes to our mind, and how we can really make it work for our projects and also for us. But the meaning of appropriate justification is a bit questionable, but of course, we can work on it.
I mean, listen, I don't think we should think this over too much, and we shouldn't think that this is very complex. You will have a measure description, and from the measure description, it should be fairly clear what is the output, what this measure will deliver. And now this will be your justification to pick the output indicator, irrespective whether it's linked to that intervention field or it's linked to another one. So don't think in terms of the intervention fields. Think in terms of what the measure is expected or you want to achieve with the measure, and what the measure will deliver, because this is on which basis you will be paid from the EU budget. And then the intervention field serves as a monitoring purpose.
Thank you.
Exactly. Things fundamentals first, technicalities later. This is also something that I tend to repeat a lot. When you know what you want to achieve and logically trickling down to this with, of course, risk assessments and, of course, choices if the risk is too high. So I'm going to drop this and concentrate on something else, which is as important, but with a lower risk. When you do the fundamentals first and then get to technicalities, the technicalities would kind of, not miraculously, but much more easily come up to the surface. So as I keep on saying, fundamentals first, technicalities later. And as Mate explained, it's not so much about the justification, it's about the appropriateness of the measure that you want to have. Over.
Thank you, Mate and Ivanka, for the clarification. That brings us all. We have been talking about the output indicator already. That's the next component which we want to discuss now. We all know that the definition can be found in the performance regulation and means a quantitative performance indicator that monitors what is directly produced or supported by the implementation of an activity. As we have mentioned, we should use the list in Annex 1, which we have just seen now, and select one output indicator per intervention field. And in duly justified cases, you can also select another one, which is not used in the Annex 1, but this should rather be the exception. So the purpose is to aggregate data across the programs to also show what have we in Interreg achieved, and if we select the same indicators, it's a way of showing also together with the evaluations what impact are we achieving. And the output indicator defines a final milestone and target for the intervention field. We have mentioned that as well. Now we come to both milestones and targets on the way to deliver measure. Here on the slide, you see the definition for a milestone and target. This is one of the tricky points now, where we had lots of discussion also internally. So yeah, milestone means a qualitative achievement used to the measure progress towards the achievement of the measure, whereas the target talks about a quantitative achievement. For the final target, you should have an output indicator. So here comes the first consideration: the final milestone and target should be an output indicator, or only the final target. So as we, in theory, both can be selected as an output indicator, but the colleagues of the evaluation unit will please come in to give a bit of more background why that is the case. And when it comes to milestones, they are steps on the way to achieve the output indicator. So this is something we know, but they can be used either in terms of program management, for example, like signing a subsidy contract, or also to the delivery of a measure, like the completion of a necessary mapping exercise. What we don't find in the regulation are interim targets. They are not explicitly mentioned there, but it is possible that when you have a final target with an output of, let's say, 100, that you also have an interim target where with 50 outputs achieved. I think that's a quite tricky, and I'm expecting more hands to be up and questions related to this, but maybe Ivanka or Mate, you would like to come in and here. Let's, Steph, please.
Yeah, I have one question related to targets and the relation with milestones. So the overall picture is quite clear to me. I know what the purposes it is, but we can have very specific situations where the target value of an output indicator is reached, but not all the foreseen milestones towards this target are being reached. I give a practical example to make it more clear what I'm meaning. So for instance, we have a measure, and while programming, we foresee that we need 2 specific calls for this measure in order to have enough projects to fulfill the target. So we have milestone 1, call 1 for this measure is being launched. With milestone 2, a second call is launched, and then other milestones and the target. But it might be the case that our first call for this measure is extremely popular, extremely successful, and we don't need the second call for this measure. But then we have in our programming document a budget allocated to call 1, which we will receive, a budget allocated to call 2 as a milestone, which we are not reaching, because we're not going to have the second call just for the sake of having a call. It's not there's no purpose. But in the end, we reach the final target of X number of cooperating companies. What will happen in our payment claims? Will we get the full budget for this measure, or will we not get the budget which was allocated to the second milestone, the second call, which we did not launch?
Yes, if I can come in, and also touching upon the ambiguity that Daniela referred to. Indeed, the definitions only refer to milestones and targets as it is on the screen. One being qualitative, the other quantitative. But when we then check the performance regulation, it introduces the concept of a final milestone, which can be an output. So, I mean, you understand very quickly that there are flaws in the way how the regulations were drafted. And these are the elements which are also raised in Council by many member states. The Commission is providing various responses, and the text will need to be amended to make clarity in this respect. Now, again, one thing is how this is drafted in the regulation, and I'm pretty sure this will be corrected. Another thing is to understand the whole logic behind this. Why do we want to have milestones? From the Commission perspective, the reason of having milestone is to speed up payments from the EU budget and to provide liquidity to the member states and ultimately to the projects. You can consider it or view it as a pre-financing for your investments. In the example that Steph was raising, the milestone is a procedural step. You publish your call for proposal, which is a way to get project applications, then finally projects with grant agreements, you disperse the money, and then they are going to produce the output, which is your target. So once the call is published, you already get the payout value associated to this milestone from the EU budget. And then when you reach the target defined for this measure, then you get the remainder of the amount in terms of payout value. You will understand as well that this links back to the costing. So if you have a cost of 100 estimated for this measure, you may want to allocate 20 as payout value to the milestone, and then the remaining 80 to the achievement of the final target. So this illustrates how the milestone works as a pre-financing for this measure. Again, introducing the concept of final milestone, interim targets. This is the legal text. In logical terms, you will have to consider how many steps you want to introduce for each measure, which will trigger payments. This can be one milestone, two milestones, one interim target, several interim targets, and the final target. I mean, this is the concept, and this is going to be made clear in the text because it's in the interest of all member states and not only you. Now, on the concrete example Steph was raising, I think this is a very good one, and the way how to sort these issues out is that, again, we are going to have this measure which will have an estimated cost. The cost is not assigned to the milestone or the target. The costing is for the measure. And again, it's your decision how you break it down to generate the payout from the EU budget. Now, if you arrive to a situation where your milestone in this example, very concrete example, cannot be achieved because everything was implemented, you will simply apply for a plan amendment to take the milestone out. It will not change in substance the deliverables of the measure. Now, of course, it creates a problem in terms of payout value, and we will have to see how we address this, because again, you may have two milestones, each milestone having a payout value of 10, and then the final target having a payout value of 80. If with the first milestone you get the 10, but you see that you will not need the second milestone, you will not need the second call, which has a 10 payout value assigned to it, you may end up in a situation that instead of receiving 100, you only get 90, because that second milestone will never be achieved. So in this particular case, we will go for plan amendment, and we will sort this out. Don't ask me how at this point, but to find a way how this 10 is getting dispersed for the milestone or target which was already delivered. So it's a very good example, and we will keep it in our mind, because there are many, actually quite many technical elements which we also still need to work out to see how can this work in practice. But you will not be penalized for this. The major objective that the target is delivered, that's the primary one, and you shouldn't be penalized financially for that.
Thank you, Marte, for answering this question, and also for the good news for that we will not, the money is not lost, but there will be a way of negotiating it or asking for an amendment. Yes, Nicoletta and Phil.
Thank you so much. That was really comprehensive. just a question. Do we understand correctly that the costing will be a very crucial element, which proves that this amount of work put in, effort put in order to achieve that kind of interim milestones or final target milestones should be based on a methodology. And this methodology will be submitted to the Commission for pre-checking, or is it an expectation to get the pre-check from the audit authority? There will be a discussion about the methodology of costing, so which proves that this measure worth this amount. Thank you. Oh.
Mate, do you already have an answer to that? Or
Yes,
Chris?
well, I can provide an answer, and Chris can also come in. Again, I would refer back to the Interact plan template in the annex of the regulation, and in particular section 3 of this template, which provides a table for the costing. And what we see there, that's there you have to list all your measures, you have to provide the estimated costs, you have to provide the intervention fields, and then you have to provide a description about the methodology used that will explain how you arrive to this estimated cost. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a further element of negotiation between the Commission and the programming authorities, because you're right, this will define many other things, including the payout value to some extent. So of course the methodology has to be robust so that it justifies and substantiates in a convincing manner why do you estimate the cost what you will estimate. How this will be done, we will have to see in practice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
I think this is the...
Thank you. Thank
you. Yeah, thank you, Mate. I mean, this is the status quo of what we know now, and yeah, let's see what more details we will receive in future. Phil and Greg.
So just a very short reflection. I'm going to return back to the conversation that to the point that Steph raised and Mate responded to. I think my feeling is that we're still at the early stages of knowing what a good milestone looks like, and I think Steph's example is a good one as a situation that ideally programs might want to avoid, even if it can be resolved through amendments and so on. I would say that if it's possible to only select milestones that have to happen and not milestones that may not happen, that would avoid administrative burden for both programs and the Commission. But I think, yeah, just to repeat, I think we're still at an early stage of what is a good milestone or not. But yeah, a good example to get us thinking.
Yes, you're right. We are at the very early stage, and this is, I think you will explain it then later on, that we in Interact also would like to start together with the programs, then think in what are good measures and what are good targets, and how could this way from the measure to the payout value look like? What are different examples as an inspiration for the program? So there will be events coming up, and how we want to do that we will share later on. Yes, Greg, please.
Thanks, Dani. So like a reflection also regarding the Nicola question and allocation of budget to certain milestones. Again, just to underline, we just collecting first information, and we are like on a very early stage. I mean, like a first reflection is actually if you just compare what you know already with the with the simplified cost options, it's not only about the methodology calculation. Yes, it is, but actually so also like a historical value is one of the key factors that you need to take into consideration. But also we already started also like internally, but also with the performance working group, like just to have like a first reflection. What other elements should be taken into consideration apart from your like a historical data or like a historical values, which are crucial? It's also like an intervention type. Also, what type of like a projects you are going to have under a certain measure? Is it also about the timing of such projects, and actually just to understanding the kind of the cash flows, for example, when and how much, for example, they claim, whether you are thinking about, for example, providing them any kind of the advance payments. So for example, how much, for example, for the advance payments you will need to like have money for like for paying immediately after the subsidy contract is paid. Any kind of the risk calculation that's also connected with that. So I think this is kind of like lesson learned coming from the current FNLC schemes, from the mainstream programs, that actually when you are thinking about this is about the justification, it takes more elements on board than only like historical values and of the costs or like expenditures there. Yes, they are crucial, but they are also other elements that you need to also consider. And this is again, this is like the work is ongoing, or like it just kind of like progressing, and we will just at some point we'll just come back to all of you with like a list of the kind of the other elements that also that they need to be taken into consideration.
Thank you, Craig, for making it a bit more practical. Agnieszka?
Yes, I'm fighting a bit with technicalities. Good morning and thank you. Agnieszka Lipińska from the Interreg Baltic Sea Region program, and I would really like to come back to the definition of targets and milestones and how they should contribute to the achievement of the program, and also a bit with regard to what Phil and Steph said, that we should think about some things that we know that they will happen in order to avoid any amendments and these bureaucratic processes. So my question is whether for the Commission it would be acceptable if the milestones, in order to avoid all the changes, amendments in case of not achievements, if the milestones will be rather process oriented. So all the steps that programs anyway have to implement, like, I don't know, announcement of calls, MC meetings, applications, submitted applications, selected. So milestones rather process oriented, and then turned into targets, which are more content related, and then targets provide an input to the output indicators. Because I'm a bit confused with the slide that we can see, because according to our understanding of the regulations, direct contribution to the output indicator, it should be rather through targets, because this is a qualitative measure. Milestones are quantitative. So now I don't know whether milestones should contribute to output indicators, like expressed in numbers, because usually output indicators in the annex, we are talking about numbers about whatever, number of solutions, number of strategies, number of people, number of volunteers, or milestones rather process oriented, and then we are turning into targets which are related to output indicators, and then through targets through milestones we are showing that we implement the program in order to achieve the target, which is output indicator. Because now I'm a bit confused, with what can be read in the regulation and now with this slide.
Shall we come in from the Commission?
Yes, please.
I think the way how the Commission presents this concept is exactly how you presented it when you started your intervention, Agnieszka. that the milestone should be a process-related thing linked to the measure, like publication of calls, or selecting X% of the budget available under the call. And then the target should be linked to the deliverable, the output indicator. So this is the very simple way of explaining how the system works. Just one nuance, which is still very important, that the milestone cannot be a procedural step linked to the program. The milestone always has to be linked to the measure. So organizing monitoring committees, this is not a milestone. You will not have a cost because it's not a measure to have monitoring committee. Of course, it's part of the program implementation required by the regulation, and for that you have technical assistance available. So first you have to define your measure with a costing, and then you will set a procedural milestone which leads to the achievement of the output deliverable which is produced by this measure. A final word on the final milestone. I'm just trying to think loud. Why do we have this notion of final milestone in the regulation? I think it refers to actually to the reforms, where it could be quite difficult to quantify, what is achieved. So don't be confused by these different terms. Try to think about reforms producing milestones, because if they cannot be quantified, and the investments where you will have procedural milestones and output deliverables which are quantified.
Okay, so it means that the milestones can be launch call for projects in order to provide an impact or input to the measure achievement. And then targets, we are talking about the actual achievements of the number of organizations, for example. And final milestones doesn't need to contribute to output indicators, so it is rather the end result meant by final milestones. Just, to understand how to build the logic, whether we have to have the milestones that will contribute also to output indicators, but then what is the difference between milestones and target in the end?
I mean, what you have to have is to have something for which the Commission can pay. Whether it's one milestone, two targets, one single target, it's up to you. You have to design your payment profile for the program. And for that reason, you may want to have more than one payment trigger linked to a measure. You don't want to wait until everything is completed that the Commission pays from the EU budget.
Thank you.
Thank you for this question and for the clarification. It's a bit tricky, but yeah, we hope to get also more information with the time. Yes, we have Ivanka, you want to come into that, and Nicola,
no,
you're coming
I'll
also
step in
that?
after Nicola.
Okay, so Nicola, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning to all. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting discussion. So I'm Nicola from Interreg Europe. Mate, you mentioned an important point that the monitoring committee cannot be considered as a milestones, organization of a monitoring committee, although to a certain extent they also contribute to the implementation of a measure. They take decisions on projects. And I think the launch of calls is also financed by the technical assistance when you think about it. It's just a question, why do you consider that the organization of monitoring committee cannot be considered as a milestone is a new element for me, and that's quite interesting, I found. Thanks.
Well, maybe I think about the monitoring committee more in general terms for the mainstream programs. You're right that in the Interreg context, they may have more power. I'm really not an expert in Interreg. I'm very sorry. Ivanka, correct me if I'm wrong. And this is why I said that for me, a monitoring committee is more linked to the implementation of the program as such. I mean, this is this is the way how the functions of the monitoring committee are formulated in the legislation also currently. But you are right. I mean, they also approve maybe certain elements which lead to implementation. So I mean, don't take me wrong. I mean, if you can formulate the milestone in the way that the monitoring committee decides about selecting, I don't know, projects representing X% of the budget, then it's more linked to implementation of certain measures, and then or a measure, and then in this sense, as you rightly point out, this can be used as a milestone. I just wanted to say that in general, having a monitoring committee does not qualify as a milestone for me. Ivanka?
Yeah, thanks, Mate. I think you explained it very well. It's true there's a small difference between monitoring committees in the Interreg world and the national and the regional programs by the mere virtue of what Interreg is. And we've had this discussion in the past where we were saying certain inputs and certain procedural things that need to happen cannot be considered as milestones for triggering payments because they're just a means to an end that need to happen. But for instance, a monitoring committee in the Interreg world, which decides on how many calls are going to be launched, why, when, and what purpose these calls will have, this in the Interreg world can constitute a milestone. But we were speaking of a first monitoring committee also only because once, as I was saying, the tap, 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 the music director says tap, 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 we go. This can be considered as a milestone on the first level, but not monitoring committees afterwards. So that is, but Mate explained it also very well. And there was something else I wanted to step in before Nicola spoke, but I forgot. But that will come in. I think, later. And I see that Nicoletta has raised a question in the chat. How do you want, Dani, are you collecting those and we come to those later, or do we step in on these?
No, please do raise the, Nicoletta, please take the floor and raise the question now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. It was not a question, but a follow-up comments what I heard. So I truly understand that we do not have that much experience on this kind of mechanism Commission proposes to implement beyond 2027. We heard RRF a lot of times. We don't know how they work and how successful they are working. So I'm pretty much sad hearing that lessons learned from RRF to be coming will be fed in our Interreg implementation mechanism. When and how, and did it take into consideration the one member states and more member states approach, one member state, several member states, third countries, accession countries. So it's kind of a very hard dilemma for me, especially knowing that we would like to start the programming exercise January, starting with the territorial analysis. But at the same time, parallel, we have to think about how to do this whole performance approach, because I think costing and everything takes a lot of time. So basically, we would need some kind of reassuring reply as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So I see that Phil has responded to that, to the point you raised in the chat, which is for me exactly, it's also my mantra that I keep repeating. It's exactly this: fundamentals first, technicalities later. Nicoletta, you should not be bummed out by the fact that the proposal is to transfer lessons and experiences from the RRF into the Interreg world, because these, what the attempt is to transfer is not a shackling exercise, but it's an exercise of thinking, why do I do what I do? what do I want to achieve? How would I know whether I have succeeded or failed, and how would I communicate about it? That's the only thing. And this boils down to the fundamentals. True, as this discussion and others are showing, there are quite a few points and issues that will need to be ironed out as the negotiation process goes and in the legislative process. But the main fundamentals and the main starting point is we need to know what we want to achieve, and this is our starting point from there. So in those terms, there's nothing, how to say it, sad is the word you use. There's nothing sad or nothing shackling in the way the RRF currently functions. So the way of thinking, starting with the results in mind and working our ways backwards from there, which is the retro planning of having an idea of what we want to achieve, as opposed to saying, okay, I'll launch a few actions and I'll see whatever contributes to my ultimate aim, and I'll support this through the budget. This is what we're trying to change. So, and as long as, and this is something that Mori quite well presented as well, we have time. For once, we have time now, indeed, that all of these things we can do them in a trial error way, and also clarify our own thinking. And for this, we have the time. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you for the question and the clarification. We will also show then later on, as I mentioned, like how are we in Interact supporting this process with the clarification? What have we planned for events to exchange and further dig deeper into certain topics? But going back to the intervention logic, we have already almost all the components mentioned. We talked about the result indicator. The definition, again, you can find in the performance regulation. What is important here to point out that whenever you have selected an output indicator, you can select one or more corresponding result indicator, and unless in one situation, if you go for greenhouse gas, you must select another second one. But otherwise, it's up to you. Do I have per output indicator one result indicator or more result indicators? And finally, payout value. We have talked about it a lot. Maybe just to sum up, for each measure, the estimated cost has to be defined ex ante. Maybe that's the crucial point here. And you will be paid on achievements of milestones and target. So as you have stated in the payment application, if there are no, we have talked about the payout value before, so if there are no more questions, we come now to the point where we would like to show you the visuals. We all, just as a nostalgic look back, this is the intervention logic as we have it now. And this is the intervention logic, how we see it at the moment for the upcoming period. As we said, just to sum up, you start with the needs assessment and territorial analysis, and then decide really what do you want to achieve. And here the focus should be select challenges which are realistic, which are measurable, and translate them into the intervention strategy. After you have come up with the intervention strategy, you describe the different measures as we have here, for example, measure 1, measure A, measure B, and measure C. We have heard that each measure can be linked, should be linked to one specific objective. As you see here, measure A is linked to specific objective 1, and measure B and C also selected 1, but it's the same one, it's specific objective 2. So this is possible. Overall, you have the general objective. If we go back to the measures now, so there are different scenarios. You can have one intervention field, like we have in measure A. You have one intervention field per measure, or as we have in measure C, you can also have more than one intervention fields. Here in measure C, you have intervention field 1, so you can select the same intervention fields again, like you have already selected for other measures, or you can select new ones, intervention field 3. With the intervention field which you have selected, you have one output indicator that is which equals a final target, including the different interim milestones and interim targets triggering payment. And to the output indicator, then there is the possibility that you either have, like we have here in measure C, if you look, you have one output indicator and one corresponding result indicator, or in measure A, we have one output indicator and 2 corresponding result indicator. That is possible again. So with this slide, we have tried to sum up all the details, what we know so far. Do you agree? Any comments? Any questions? Yes, Steph, please.
I was looking for the right button and I pressed the wrong one. I just wanted to applaud. I think this is the perfect picture of how it is.
Oh, thank you.
But it's only my modest opinion. So,
congrats to Bessiana who did the who did the visuals for it. Okay, good. Any other questions related to the intervention logic? Because if not to the theory, then let's get to practical, to the practical part. Phil, how, after hearing all this theory, how could an intervention logic look like? Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, so we have, so hello everyone. So we have in Interact come up with some example measures to illustrate how we see the intervention logic. For those of you who were at the Knowledge Fair in Dubrovnik, this one that we're presenting now will be familiar, but we also have some below which weren't presented in Dubrovnik. So we have zoomed in on I suppose a subsection of the intervention logic, but you can imagine that before we got to this measure here, which is to reduce the number of sites not protected through nature-based solutions, there was before that a needs assessment and a territorial analysis, and this resulted in that this found that there were a number of, let's say, Natura 2000 sites in the program area, and that not all of these were subject to the necessary protection, and the intervention strategy was to reduce the number of sites that are not protected through developing a number of nature-based solutions. So you can see a clear link between the intervention strategy and the measure that that was chosen. And having decided on that measure, again, not pictured in this diagram, above that you would link that measure to the specific objective that is most appropriate. But now to focus what's on the screen here. So having decided that this is going to be your measure, you look at just I think an important point to add, just while we're still on the measure, is that you see that this measure is specific to the program. This is decided by the program on the basis of the program's own intervention strategy. I think this was a question that came up at the Knowledge Fair. The Commission isn't going to provide a list of measures for programs to choose from. The measure comes from the program based on the program's intervention strategy. However, the intervention fields, yes, they are predefined, and in this example, the intervention field that seems to reflect the goals of the measure most closely was intervention field 286, and this is found in Annex 1 of the performance regulation. And then for that intervention field, we have an output indicator, which is also selected from Annex 1 of the performance regulation. And as well as that, you also have milestones, and these again come from the program. These aren't found in Annex 1, and they relate to stepping stones on the way to achieving this final target. In this case, we've gone with, let's call them program-related stepping stones, which are Call 1 contract signs and Call 1 projects complete. But if we think about the slides earlier, you could also envisage measures specific milestones. For example, a mapping exercise to decide exactly which sites needed to be protected and which are the most appropriate solutions to develop. Going back to the output indicator, you see that we have divided this in two. So so you have the final target, which is 1,000 hectares. But as we've seen, even though it's not specified in the regulation, there is the possibility to have an interim target, which is a proportion of the final target, and in this case, we've chosen that to be 700 hectares protected or restored. And then finally, there is a corresponding result indicator, and this is chosen from the same intervention field as 286, which is protection of wetlands. So just to now map payment values onto this diagram. As we've heard, it all begins with the costing of the measure. So how much do we think the measure is going to cost? And this is decided ex ante. And then the cost of that measure is apportioned to different milestones and interim targets and final targets, so that the achievement of each of those milestones, interim targets and final targets will release their own individual payment to the program. And this apportionment will also be defined ex ante. The result indicator, this doesn't have a payment value. This is just for monitoring purposes. So we do have some more examples, but I see we have a question in the chat. I don't know if it's a question or a comment. Nicola, would you like to share that with us, or are you happy just to leave it in the chat?
Yes, thank you, Phil. It's always very nice to have examples, concrete examples, I think. But it reminds me the IKF, where I say to my colleague, the Natura 2000 examples, I was not 100% sure to understand how Interreg, what is the role of Interreg. And to come back to the discussion we had at the beginning, I found it very interesting. I think the whole discussion on the performance approach is also maybe a chance for Interreg to ask the real question, the most fundamental question: why cross-border and transnational programs exist, This is to address a specific territorial issue. And if we ask the right questions, maybe there's a chance that there's less overlap that we have currently with a different program, because the thematic concentration has led also to a certain overlap between the programs. They're all doing innovation, they're all doing, I don't know, environment, and sometimes you can hardly see anymore the territorial dimension in these programs. So behind my remark is also the fact that we should come back to the territory. And I like the idea of saying what is specific to my territory, what is unique to my territory, and what can I change to the territory I cover. These questions behind the performance may help the program to be more specialized and to distinguish themselves from each other, that we don't have situation like in my region, where the same projects are financed both in cross-border and in transnational programs. But sorry, this is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Nicola, I'm really happy that you shared your opinion, whether it's your personal opinion or not, because I think this is exactly the reason for putting an example to the theory. We want to see whether you feel that these examples correspond to your reality or not. And in fact, I'm getting ahead of myself, but in a few slides' time, we have, I suppose, this diagram here, but it's full of dots and question marks, because this is precisely what part of our plan for 2026 is to create examples with the community. Again, that's not the point for there to be a list of off-the-shelf measures which programs can say, oh yeah, I want to pick that one, and that one. But we need to translate these terms and these models into our reality, and we think that the best way to do that is to do that together. So yeah, no, I really welcome your intervention there, Nicola. Do we have any other comments on what was presented here? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much also to Nicola for bringing this issue up. So as I see here, the example, of course, this is just an example, I know. This could just be one project in the Baltic Sea region. We are doing more than this, and so we are trying to give space also for experimentation, and we are trying to find 40 different ways into making the nature and the environment across the Baltic Sea region, and to improve the environmental situation. So this is why I was also saying that how the intervention fields are listed on the annex, it's really very difficult for us to fit our program as it is running right now, because it is more relevant for the mainstream programs. And so this is why also this intervention field 142 is more relevant for us. And I would really appreciate it if we could also try to prepare an example at some point based on this intervention field to see how this could actually help and how this could also could actually work in the transnational setting of our programs. So this is just for you or for me to point out that this is very nice for a mainstream program, but for transnational cooperation programs, it's too specific. Yeah. Thank you.
But thank you very much. Right, so I think you've set our objective for the next months of how to move from these examples to the ones that better reflect our reality. I don't know if we have any comments from the Commission on that, apart from that. Yeah, this is a worthy task for the community for the coming months.
Phil, I don't know if you see my hand raised, but I would like to step in. But before I step in, if there are other intervention questions, doubts about this same topic, I would prefer to hear them first, and then I'll I'll say what I wanted to say based on those two interventions. If there are none, I can speak, but go ahead, see if someone else wants to step in.
I don't see any other hands, Ivanka, so yeah,
okay.
The floor is yours.
True that this, even though I don't like a lot the term mainstream versus Interreg, because we're all trying to do the same, improve lives and livelihoods for the European citizens for whom we work. And I know that it's easy to distinguish between mainstream programs, which in our world, Interreg, seem as the easier burden than ours because of the more complex institutional and functional setup in which we work. But this is also a mantra that I keep repeating for a long time, that basically cooperation is essential, and there's no doubt about it. And as I always say, the Interreg programs are even more an expression of European integration than the national ones are, because I'll oversimplify things to make a point. But in some of the national programs, we're talking about fiscal transfers to the member states to build Sofia, my town, would never have had a metro if it weren't for the European funds. Am I better off with a metro in Sofia? Yes, I am. Is this European integration? I leave it there. The border regions where people up until 20 years ago were not even sitting down at the same table to talk about what they want to achieve is the real emanation and the real crystallization of European integration. But as important as cooperation is, as essential and vital as it is, it's not an end in itself. It's basically a means to achieve tangible results. It can be stronger institutions, it can be more resilient economies, it can be taking care of the border regions that most of the central power doesn't care about. Again, I'm oversimplifying to make a point. But so if cooperation remains the end in itself and the only objective, then we risk focusing on process rather than change, impact, achievements. So to this end and to this level, it's important as well that we have examples like this when we are exemplifying and when we want to move from process and cooperation for the sake of cooperation to cooperation as a stepping stone for building something tangible and for improving the lives of citizens. And that's why also I always bring up, use the B Solutions papers. I know they're old. I know they're probably not au goût du jour, but there is a mine of examples of what border obstacles and what administrative hurdles people who live in those areas are facing. And our programs is one of the vectors for solving these issues. Is it easy? No, because we in certain places we have to fight with the central authorities. But if it takes this to fight with the central authority so that the border areas or the functional areas in the transnational programs can be better off, then we do it. That's a bit the thinking that we need to have. And I guess when I see this example, yes, we may say it's a more mainstream example, but maybe there are Natura sites in our border regions and in our functional areas. Thanks, and over. I'm sorry. While I have, I missed up when I said Nicoletta's in the chat. I thought it was Nicoletta speaking about the issue that that Chiara was speaking. So that's why I mixed up the two things. But I can also come, if we have time, to the 10-page paper and the N+1. But we can leave this because it's more technicalities than anything else.
Okay, thank you, Ivanka. So we have another hand raised from Sophie.
Yes, hello, good morning from my side. Sophie Scarvelis from Interreg Euromed. I fully understand and agree with what you said about the fact that cooperation is not should be not the end in itself. But when I see an intervention logic like this one as an example, I have the feeling that we come back to the 1420 period where we had some struggles with the output indicators, for example, and we had one about hectares of protected areas, for example. And we came out at the end with maybe more than 3 times the cooperation area covered because, of course, we had projects in the same region, for example, several projects in the same region. And it was very difficult to assess which exact hectares were protected or restored through our actions. But having the same measure, for example, but with an output indicator trying to sum up the number of nature-based solutions implemented, for example, in different sites, maybe this is something that is more acceptable in. I'm just speaking out loud now. I have to reflect on that. But if you understand what I mean, this is the thing that we can maybe follow up. But the number of hectares, for example, or the number of kilowatt of reduction of energy, or I don't know, consumption in energy or something like that, that like we had in 1420 period, is definitely not what we under cooperation programs like ours at transnational level, for example, we can really measure in an effective way. So something in the middle, I can understand, between what we did what we are doing now, which is quite large maybe, but the number of solutions, if they are targeted to the measure, for example, is something that is for me more acceptable or to the point of what we are doing with cooperation for the purpose of the measure we have chosen, something like that. I don't know if it was clear, but yeah, these kind of things are quite, for me, yeah, I'm afraid that we are coming back to something that was really, really not at all adapted to what we were doing. And we are losing what we started to bring in 21-27 on the specific things that we can measure at the level of our cooperation projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. I saw that a hand went up and is now gone down again, so I assume that there are no other comments. Oh no, so the hand has gone back up.
Yes, sorry, it's me again. But Sophie has more or less mentioned what I wanted to say. I hope I didn't give the impression that we wanted to focus on process and on cooperation as an end. It's the opposite I wanted to say in a way. The only thing I was saying, for this example, I would have at least mentioned reduced number of cross-border sites or transnational sites. I don't know. I would have tried to put something that makes us unique, because the mainstream, you have to also consider that the means, the financial means behind the mainstream cannot be compared. The metro in Sofia, of course, requires millions and millions of euros, and we don't have this means within Interreg. So the pure investment or implementation related indicators, as Sophie say, are not always fully adapted to our world, because the financial means that we have are limited simply. But I completely agree that we need to think in terms of who should be better off, what can we really improve with the means that we have and with the territory that we cover.
We're fully aligned. And Nicolas, you know me, I use every occasion to be able to federate between every one of us, that when there's a point made, which I think is a very good crystallization and exemplification of a kind of a burdensome issue all the programs are working towards, I always use it as a stepping stone to remind once again why that we should think about why we do what we do. And indeed, our budgets have nothing in comparison to the mainstream ones. But again, in those small budgets and with the idiosyncratic nature that we are Interreg, we have tons of possibilities to change things and to improve them. But thanks a lot. And yeah, no, we're fully aligned. I don't think you were meaning that we should concentrate on process. I'm just using it as a stepping stone to echo my mantra. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ivana, and thank you to Anna in the chat, who has also asked for more examples focused on cross-border and transnational cooperation. So this brings us very nicely to the slide that I mentioned earlier. So we're not going to look in detail at these examples. I think it's enough to say that we have prepared some other examples, and we invite you to reflect on these outside of the meeting to see whether they do correspond to your reality or not. And maybe we can use these as a starting point when we meet together next to really think about what does a measure in Interreg look like, and is it the same for a transnational program or a cooperation program, and yeah, come up together through these steps to not to define off-the-shelf measures which then can be used, but at least to come to a common understanding of what a measure should look like in Interreg, what do good milestones and other stepping stones look like in Interreg. And that's, yeah, I think for us it's quite clear this is a very important task for the coming months. And unless there are any further questions, I will leave it to Danny to announce what is happening next, Danny.
I think we are very, very grateful for this fruitful and interactive discussions, but you all deserve a break now. Let's go for some coffee, 15 minutes. Let's be back 11:20. Is that okay?
Very good for me.
Yes. So yeah, see you back in
11:20.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So welcome back. I hope you are back from the comfort break so that we continue this discussion. If so, please give us a sign that you are back, colleagues, so that we can continue with an audience, not among ourselves, even though it's lovely to talk about these topics. Very good. Thanks a lot. Before we move into the next topic of the agenda, I would like to ask if you want to continue or you have some hot topics that you would like to discuss related to how the future intervention logic will look like, and you feel you want to clarify these aspects right away. If not, we would like to dedicate the rest of the time that we have planned for today's session discussing the current indicators, just to move from future and we travel back to the present. And if this is okay for you, then we will move on the next topic, and maybe give us also some time to reflect on what have been discussed today, to have some good reflections, but also digest a bit all these different aspects that we were been discussing. So coming back to the present, we would like to talk about a few aspects of the indicators of the current programming period. Almost 1 year ago, we kind of finalized an amazing work that we have done together with you related to the stock taking on the indicators, and some of the aspects were related exactly to the aspects that we would like to discuss with you, and more precisely about
the double counting and how to report the indicators and when and how to do this. So we would like to discuss together. We ask for some questions to be submitted before this event. Fully understand that time somehow it cannot be considered our ally this by the end of the year, but we very much would like to thank all the colleagues that made it to send us their questions, but we would like also to open this the floor for discussion also with other colleagues that didn't manage to send us their question, so, since this is an open discussion and reflection among all of us. And without any further explanation, I would like to start with some reflection related to RCO 87 and RCR 84, and just going back on the stock taking report, there was this reflection whether this counting should be done on the level of the SO specific objective, and if so, when, how to report in SFC, and what are the actions or managing authority has to put in place. So we have colleagues from evaluation unit that might help us a bit on this regard, whether just to understand whether our understanding also goes in the same direction, or there are any other elements that we should pay attention when we are referring to the counting, and to provide consistency on the indicators and how we report them. Thea, would you like to start?
Yes, it's fine. So this is what we discussed in preparation of the presentation. So indeed, we can clarify a bit on these questions. I don't know whether the replies will make you all very thrilled, but at least you will get a clear reply. So on the first point, we can confirm that indeed there is the expectation that the managing authorities would be cleaning the data before they are actually submitting it through the SFC. And if you look at our staff working document on the performance monitoring and evaluation for the 21-27 period, and in the description of the RCO 87 specifically, there is a clear instruction that for the reporting, it's by specific objective, and that at the level of the specific objective, double counting should be avoided. So what we see in, as if it helps, I don't know if it helps, but in the mainstream programs, what the managing authorities have done, they have created at their level a system that would identify, for example, for enterprises supported, which are also subject to, let's say, the risk of double counting, because they can receive support through grants, and then the same company can receive support through financial instrument, or they can receive support for one project in research, but under same specific objective for another project in research. So for that, the mainstream projects have created for themselves at program level additional way of monitoring and cleaning the data by, for example, using the tax number of companies to identify how the company and how many times that tax number for that particular company was used to pay out something, or to be encoded in their system when the grant agreement has been signed. So those are, let's say, examples of what some programs have done at their level, and how they have ensured that as they are, implementing projects and signing grant agreements, they have an overview of what are exactly unique final beneficiaries, and what beneficiaries have been supported under the same specific objectives through multiple calls, let's say. And we have different tables in the 21-27 program for reporting, where you can report per indicator, but then you also need to report specifically on SMEs,
the number of SMEs supported without the double counting. So if we replicate this to Interreg, our expectation would be that also the double counting of organizations supported is avoided. And our ambition was that, or the expectation also of the legal text that says that the managing authorities are also responsible for the reliability and the data quality of the data submitted. The aspiration is that this would be checked not more than 2 times per year. So of course, that if it's manual work, it's going to be tremendously heavy. The question is whether the programs can find a solution at program level and then run the exercise in one of the upcoming reporting cycles, and then continue simply maintaining this information on a regular basis. Because as the question nicely points out, if this is only done at the end of the period, it would indeed, as point 3 on this slide indicates, it would be in fact cause the ex post reduction of reported figures. So that's why the objective was from the side of the Commission that this data cleaning is done on a regular basis during the data quality checks before the actual submission in SFC, so that it all matches at the end. So that's why I started the intervention by saying I'm not sure that the reply is going to make you happy, but at least there is some clarity, because it implies maybe additional work or additional tasks.
But maybe we can open the floor to the colleagues and ask them directly if this answer satisfies their needs, or is it clear enough, not only to the colleagues who sent us the question ahead, but also to other colleagues if they have similar concerns related to the data cleaning and the timing. We heard it's important to have it in a regular basis, but also during the monitoring of the outputs and activities of projects. But colleagues, maybe you would like to add anything, or shall we move to the next question? Is clear? Do you have any further concerns related to data cleaning and timing of submitting the data in SFC? Yes, Christoph.
Well, thank you, Christoph Ebermann from Interreg Central Europe program. This question actually came from us also because we do have this challenge of data cleaning and related target setting. In a previous session, we were told that the data cleaning could also be done in the frame of the impact evaluation, and that we should include a notification in SFC whether that this data will be cleared at a later stage. So, but then we realized that there is no such data, no such explanations which can be included actually in SFC. And that's why came the question, well, then if we clean at the end, as you correctly pointed out, this would then reduce the numbers. So I think it's going to be a bit a challenge because, of course, the data is provided. You need you have a discrepancy of the data also then between our monitoring systems and the data which we are communicating further, because our projects are, for example, reporting to us the RCO 87 numbers, while the double counting can happen also of a call 1 project, for example, with a call 4 project. So it's something of interventions which are, or operations happening at a different stage of time. So I see your point as you presented it. How in our case this can now be solved, it's a takeaway. Just saying that previous guidance was in the direction you can also do it in the frame of the impact evaluation, which we are planning in to start only towards the second half of 27 and to run it in 28. So this would be the moment where we were foreseeing to do this data cleaning. Maybe just to hear your position on this plan B, which would be another plan as the one which was presented now.
So I have two points of feedback. So it's always good to have a plan B when plan A does not work, but then then it's a conscious decision with the awareness that point 3 here will materialize, highly likely will materialize. So this is the reality of things. The second point that I was advised to pass on as a message is that some of the programs, because I joined only a year ago the team, so I don't have the historical knowledge of the preparation of the 21-27 period, but I was told that some of the Interreg programs have had the same technical support, helping them design their monitoring system at the program level, and that maybe among Interreg programs there are already some who have implemented solutions on digital solutions that are software that helps them avoid double counting, so that they have set up their program monitoring systems in a way that they already avoid double counting. So I haven't received the information from colleagues which specific programs these are, but I'm sure that maybe the colleagues in Interact or somebody from who is present in the meeting might come in and might actually help you bilaterally to build or replicate their system, or maybe just jump on the same ship, that you all sail into the same direction, more or less. So those are the two elements. So the question of the impact assessment, as I am just to finalize, is that the question is when it will come. So if it will take until 2031, then it's a bit far to wait for it. So something should be done while we are still monitoring. But if your impact assessment will be done in 2026, you can already correct your data with the June data or the June reporting cycle of 2026. So it all depends also on your timeline. The point is that as there is the ambition that this is done on a regular basis, okay, it cannot be done with this cycle of December, but to have some realistic timeline before the actual closure of the period. That would be at least, let's say, if you use the fallback plan B, then there is an aspiration that plan B is implemented rather swiftly, or as swift as possible. Yes, please, Christoph.
Thank you. Maybe just to react on that, thank you for your feedback for the impact evaluation. So we will then, in our case, have to consider Plan B when it comes to the system. Indeed, we are a very large number of Interreg programs using the GEMS system. GEMS unfortunately does not allow to filter out this information. Like if I take the RCR84 indicator, we don't get a list. We get a quantification, but we don't get a list of institutions which would allow to extract this information directly from the system. So basically, we have to create some administrative burden in generating respective tables which come back to us, which then manually are cleaned. So that's why this topic of data cleaning was always a tricky thing, and we are very happy of the movements which have taken place, that the data cleaning is to be done only at SO level and not at program level, which was the initial settings. But maybe for the future programming, since we were also talking a lot now with indicators in the future, I think what would help definitely a lot in the Interreg world would be that if all institutions would have a unique identifier that which is done at a European level, so that this filtering can be done more easily and avoiding double counting, because in practice it shows that the very same institutions change their names, write it differently, different departments, making it very complicated to do this filtering. And of course, we are reducing double counting at the level of programs, but the inter-program double counting remains. So this as another issue.
I don't know how much effort, time effort, or human effort, or financial resources would it require if the indirect programs who are using GEMS go back to the developers of that solution and ask whether, because the beneficiaries are submitting the data into the system, so how much effort would it take from their side to simply add one more column in all of the reports that they are sending you, or in the tool that they are providing you. And then this would allow you yourselves easier filtering, so that you don't have to match 20 different data sources. So that's also a question to put out there for the programs who are using the same tool, because the beneficiaries are reporting their name, they are reporting their VAT numbers or unique identifiers. So that data is in some data warehouse somewhere in the back. The question is, how much effort would it cost for the existing solution to simply draw the data that is in the back into the front? So in a way to be blunt, to spit it out in a column. And then of course you can then filter the column, identify the duplicates, and so on and so forth in a far easier way than going to for different data sources across different maybe countries who are involved, or different authorities who are involved in the same Interreg program. Just food for thought.
Thank you very much, Thea, for all the clarifications. And since GEMS is developed by Interreg, we will keep this in mind maybe for the next monitoring system to have also these features, and to in a way ease the way of reporting of the programs, and make this cleaning of the indicators and avoiding any double counting a bit more straightforward, and not requiring any additional effort from the program JSs to do such a work. And yeah, as Christoph clearly mentioned it, to ease a bit the work, and to have a better focus on the results and the qualitative aspect of what the indicator per se tell, and not this administrative issues. Good. So if there is nothing more to add on this first question, then we will move to the last question. No, to the second one that we received ahead, but then we will give the floor to all of you to reflect on more aspects. And this is related to, again, to RCO 84, linked paired to the RCO 116 and RCR 104, how to differentiate. We have seen also in the report that often programs or beneficiaries are confused. Solution uptaken, jointly developed after the project is closed. So and of course also to differentiate within the same projects. If the indicators are created but they reflect different activities. Is this a way to go? Would that avoid to have this double counting? And yeah, would be a nice solution to have clear understanding which activity is contributing to which indicator.
Yes, so on this, I think that this is a very good point that you made, that the program themselves need to be clear on what the activity is doing. So if the activity is a pilot project that is going to test a new process or develop new tools, then it is basically a pilot action as per the definition of the pilot actions in the RCO 84. So if the activity is actually to test something or to develop a new tool, this could then be linked to the indicator RCO 84. If the activity is resulting in a tool that is going to be scaled up, and it's already presented somewhere, adopted somewhere officially as the next thing to do, because I think that the example given here was a model on how to perform evacuation drills. So then this is also a valid output indicator that can be used. So nothing prevents you, and in the definition of both of those RCOs, it's clearly stated that they can be used in conjunction. So it means that you can have one activity that will be a pilot project, and then it will result in a viable solution that is picked up and going to be used, scaled up in other organizations or across the country or across the region and so on. So you can use, if you want, for the monitoring and for the reporting, for one activity, both indicators. It doesn't constitute double counting because the objective of the indicator is different. But if you want to simplify your life, you can also pick one that you consider more relevant. So of course, if you split the calls or organize your activity in a split way, you can use one indicator for one and the other for the other activity. And if you are in a dilemma, which one you would like to use more, and you don't want to overburden yourself with using more than necessary, and simplify as we are going to in the next period, the more added value indicator is of course the one that has jointly developed solutions. So because it implies that the pilot action was successful and actually had a solution delivered at the end of the pilot action, which is then scaled up. So yeah, this would be the reply. So the reply, in short, it would not constitute double counting. You can use them both for the same activity. You can split the activity in two and use each where more appropriate, or you can opt to count the solutions as they bring more added value.
Thank you very much, Thea. Very clear for me. So I would like to ask the colleagues if that was clear also on their end, and if they have any further reflection on this question. Perhaps we have them in the room. Yes. Okay. So I guess with that, we have covered all the questions that we received. Thank you, Sandra, for confirming. We covered all the questions that we received. Was not a long list, but we would like to use now maybe some 10-15 minutes to open the discussion and to ask if you have any other burning issues related to the indicators in the current programming period that you would like to use the opportunity to have also the colleagues from the evaluation unit here with us today and clarify any aspects that you might have doubts or is still not clear.
So in the meantime, I have put in the chat for colleagues to be aware that we have recently updated our methodological guidance document for the performance monitoring and evaluation following the midterm review of the ERDF and Cohesion Fund regulation and the JTF regulation. So all the definitions that I was mentioning and all the guidance can be found in this document as well. So when in doubt, you are more than welcome to consult it. And yeah, this is now the latest version so that you also have the most updated input from the Commission side.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. And if there are no more questions, then Sandra, you would like to say something?
Yes, I would like to ask about the target values of indicators. In case we overachieve or underachieve the target values which are set currently in the program document, what could we do? Can we just leave it till the end of programming period and then explain why these values do not match those which are in the program document? Or as next year we will have this operational evaluation, after we complete the evaluation, maybe on the basis of conclusions after the evaluation, we may then introduce amendments in the program document if there will be such need, because anyway we're having now one call open, and after that we will have capitalization call, so maybe we will achieve indicator targets, but in case if we are not, so what could we do? Thank you.
Indeed. So what we advise to also the mainstream programs and as well as to the Interreg programs is that if there were changes to the assumptions that you used when you were planning the targets, then these assumptions need to be updated or clarified, and the best way to do it is to amend the performance methodological document that is relevant for your program. So as an example, let's say coming back to the SME support, because I think it's maybe replicable to the organizations supported through Interreg. If you had in mind having 20 projects supporting, I don't know, 150 organizations with a budget of, I don't know, 2,000 euros, and you changed your mind and you said, no, 2,000 euros isn't, too little to have an effect or an impact. We're going to change the strategy and we're going to, give 10,000 euros, but automatically we cannot, with that envelope, support that many organizations or that many SMEs. Then it means that your strategy has changed, your assumption on how you are getting to your target value changed, so you need to update your methodological document. So this needs to be then this needs to match. So it should not be that during the implementation the strategy changes so significantly that it no longer matches the original thing. So you can also amend the original framework that you were planning on implementing, but then the reality hit, so you saw that it's better to adapt, but then you go back and you amend also the performance document, methodological document. And we advise the programs to do this as soon as possible, in fact, because then this helps the monitoring system, because then you amend the methodological document, you amend your targets, and then the outliers that we see in the data are less. So this also now depends on how big your outliers are, meaning your overachievement or your underachievement. So if your overachievement is 5,000%, which is the case in some programs, so I'm not coming up with these random examples, then of course it would be advisable to do it as soon as possible instead of waiting for the evaluation to come, because you already in principle, you are already reporting decided values, which means that there has been a selection process concluded. So the value of the indicator is already decided. So it's highly unlikely that commitment towards the beneficiary with whom you have signed a grant agreement, that you will go back on this. So it means that the decided value will, of course, stay like this. So if you already have this change in the approach, in the way that you have decided to distribute your support, then the wisest thing would be to amend the performance methodological document and clarify that the assumptions for that particular activity or operation have changed, leading now to new values for the targets. And then you continue to monitor the implementation and report on implementing values as the project progresses. I hope this helps.
Yes, please, Christoph.
Yeah, thank you. I found this discussion very interesting, and I had a question exactly going in the similar direction. So you're saying that if the assumptions for the indicators have changed, we update the methodological document, but then the methodological document needs to be consistent with the IP. So isn't the chain of consequence, since the methodological document is the background document, which was used for the programming and the target setting and in the IP, I guess if the assumptions have changed, we are also changing the IP as a chain of consequence of reflecting the changed assumptions. Changing alone the methodological document would probably not be sufficient, or would it be?
Well, IP stands for?
For the Interact program, for the program where we are actually defining our targets.
But the thing is that your implementation already did that. So it would just mean that in the implementation that you are doing, you're already deviating for the program. So you're actually retroactively bringing the two together, in fact. So you don't have, you understand, this is how it looks from the Commission perspective. It looks that you had a methodological document that was supporting your program. Mm-hmm. And then in the implementation, the program changed its mind, and on the ground, something else happened, which is a legitimate approach. It can be done. But then you need to do the paperwork and go back and then, of course, match what you are actually doing on the ground with what you wanted to do, because otherwise there is a discrepancy. But in our view, it's not that you have to change the program because of the methodological document. No, it's just because in the meantime the approach was changed, but it wasn't necessarily visible because no amendment was submitted.
Exactly.
So yes, so the question is how you look at it. Yeah.
So just my takeaway, just to see whether I understand correctly. So it goes hand in hand. The methodological document obviously goes hand in hand with the IP. If the assumptions change, the assumption, since you have a reporting at SO level, it can simply be that we got more projects bottom up in one SO than expected, and in another SO less, which reflects then the assumptions made for the respective indicators, which needs a revision of the indicators. And so, yes, the justification is in the methodological document. The figures are the ones in the IP. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so, for example, sometimes the change is quite easy in a sense that you have transfers in terms of money, but there is no change in the logic. So you see the change in the size of the target as well as decided values because money has been taken out from one SO and put into another. And in those cases, you don't necessarily need to change the methodological calculation or description because you're just taking money away. Or adding money to something. So the calculations are really, how do you say, matching. But in other cases, and this is where we also, when we do the checks before we approve your amendments, is also to see if the money stays the same and the target is going down, why? Because whoever sees it, it's not only the Commission. Even if you would look at it, you would also ask yourself, what is going on here? So then it cannot be that, something keeps on going down or being underachieved 60%, or for example, now, or I don't know, currently at 15% of decided values. So if you're now at 15%, 15 out of 100 at 2025, either something changed in the assumption or you need to reflect where you want to do amendment that you take the money and put it somewhere else, So that's why it goes hand in hand. So in fact, it should, what you are doing in the program with the, priority access, specific objectives and so on needs to match on how you came up to those numbers. So it's not that the methodological document drives the priorities or the objectives for the programs, but in fact that once you, based on your needs assessment, once you have defined it, you have to also substantiate what is going on, and then it needs to match.
Thanks a lot, Christoph, for the question, and Thea for the clarifications. Seems to be a bit clearer now, but we have another question from Chiara.
Yes, good morning, Italy, Slovenia. We had just submitted last September modification of the program in which we aligned the output and result indicators plus other financial shifts. We haven't touched on the targets of indicators, but actually, we don't have any changes into the assumptions and motivations. So the policy is remain unchanged, but it could be that we have overreached some targets. That's why, because of course, each single project declared their own targets, and summing up the targets declared by each project, they overreach the value in the program. So if I understood well from your response before, if we have just a change in the targets, overreaching the targets, there is no need to change the document. I hopefully receive your confirmation on that. And plus, we have to consider that of course, the values we are collecting during the monitoring are ongoing values. Therefore, just some projects are towards their closure. So we are not sure that finally those values will overreach that much the value of the program. So at the moment, we would not be in the position of making any modification, because we need to compare the declared values with what they will be actually achieving at the end.
So indeed, I can confirm that if there is no change in the approach, in how the operation is being implemented, there is no need to go back to the methodological document and to change the assumptions. Also, if there is an overachievement of targets with the same amount of money, nobody happier than all of us, because it means that the money was very effectively used. Efficiently, we'll see, but effectively. But the question is also the overachievement rate. So if your overachievement is 15, 40% or something like this, and if it's plausible and explainable, okay. But if the overachievement is 5,000%, meaning that 5 times more, so they were planning on reaching 200,000 people and they have reached 1 million people. Maybe possible, okay. Maybe possible. I don't know if it's a communication campaign and they used it, I don't know, they used instead of local radios, they decided to use national TV. Maybe it's possible to count it like that. But again, this means that the question is, what was your assumption? What did you write in the assumption? What tools you will be used for this communication campaign? So for me, as long as you didn't change significantly in the approach, there's no need to change the methodological document. But if the type of the operation has changed significantly to compare to what was planned initially, and it has an impact on the target, on the assumptions, you need to update the methodological document. One important thing that I want to clarify is that it's also not the objective to match the current implementation per se, even if it's overperforming or underperforming, with the target set initially, because the target setting is an aspiration that we want to achieve. Sometimes the aspiration is not achieved, and maybe your programs will end up at 80% of the achieved target. But no, as long as the initial assumption of how you wanted to implement it did not change, you should not be changing the targets to give the impression that 100% was achieved, because that defeats the purpose of the monitoring system, and that defeats the purpose of ex post evaluation, saying this is what we did in the past period, now we have a lesson learned, and then in the next period we will do it differently, because then you don't see it. Then you're just fixing the numbers to get that everything is picobello, and that's not the idea. So the idea is to really have the targets and as they were, if possible, but in case of big changes in the approach, which sometimes the programs have, this then needs to be documented back properly in the underlying documents for the programs. And one of the underlying documents is, of course, the performance document. So in the case of Slovenia, indeed, I think that I have actually seen that proposal for the amendment. The conclusion was already from the Commission side that at this stage no change in the methodological document was needed. So I think that the amendment was in any case adopted already. So it means that we were happy when you submitted it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Thea, and especially for underlining also this last aspect, that programs don't necessarily have to sound as top achievers, even though we very much hope that to happen, but these might be also a bit jeopardizing also these strategic decisions when we look also in the next programming period. So it's good to learn from the current programming period, and also learn not only what can be done and how to be done, but also how strategic we can be given also the results that have been achieved in the previous programming periods. I don't know if you have any other question related to indicators in the current programming period. Any reflections you want to share? Maybe not questions. Too many questions were asked today. Okay, so then we will move on, sharing with you a bit what are upcoming activities. Yes, we strongly invite you to join our SharePoints. As you might know, we migrated from the old tool to the new tool. Still, we are not geek in the new tool. We're trying to do our best. However, we have ensured to have this virtual space where we can connect, where we can share documents. And yeah, here you have our SharePoint. We will put the link also for it so that you can easily join it. If you cannot, then please drop us a line. Is under program and project management. Then you have to look for evaluation and indicators, click, and then you will see all the related documents, all about indicators, previous programming periods, current programming periods, evaluation plans, impact evaluation, operational evaluations, and so on and so forth. We kindly invite you also to share your documents with the community, so we can all benefit from this exchange and learning exercise, and yeah, to make the community to have some meaningful and insightful exchange also virtually and not only during our events. And with that being said, I would say that we have planned quite many activities, events for the next year. Hopefully, we will have our monitoring committee in a couple of weeks, so this will be all approved. But we start from this year, next 4th and 5th of December. We have the meeting of the performers in Vienna together, and Phil, Greg, and Yasmina will be there together with Dani and myself, and colleagues. Ivanka will be there too. So we will continue the work that the performers started with developing their mock-ups. So for the moment being, this still is a meeting for those programs that started the process and are developing the mockups. And I'm pretty sure that in the upcoming events, we will be able to share the outcome of this exercise with the whole Interreg community, and in a way feed the process also with other programs which were not involved, so to say, at this early stage. We will continue the work on indicators. Many of you have asked us to continue and especially what would be the next activities, so that in this event that will take place presumably week 6 2026 somewhere in Germany. We don't have any location yet, but let's say that the important element here is that we will focus on the verification of outputs and results, and also expanding a bit the focus of the discussion, and mostly on the indicators, target, milestones, so that we can bridge, so to say, the two programming periods, and we can start have some concrete reflections also in this regard. Then week 9, we will have an evaluation preparation of terms of reference for impact evaluations, and I think this is Lithuania. Our wishful think was France, but might be Lithuania. So we will discuss with all of you how to prepare for the terms of reference in view of the impact evaluations in the years to come. Some programs already started, so that's would be beneficial to discuss, share, and also clarify maybe elements related to the preparation, and to have a smooth preparation process. And then we have in week 7 and week 17 planned PBA for beginners, just to make sure that we bring the concept to the whole audience, Interreg programs, but also different Interreg program bodies, just not to leave the topic just for a niche, but for everyone. So these two sessions are planned for week 7 and week 17. So please inform the colleagues within your programs that might be interested to learn more about the performance-based approach, to pencil down the dates and to join Phil, Greg, and Yasmina on this. And then we have another slide with upcoming events. So February, March 26, certified training, evaluation foundations. It will take place online. Again, here, the invitation to all of the colleagues to join the training, or if you have colleagues in your JSs that might be interested into the topic, or new colleagues that join the program, we will be more than happy to welcome them and guide them through the training. Then we have week 20, another event, harmonized approach to capture and highlight the added value of Interreg. Maybe some of you know that we started these pilot activities on evaluation, and we had some we had meetings with the programs that joined this pilot activity, and now we would like to share maybe these first outcomes of the pilot with the whole Interreg community, and build on the common knowledge of the community, and see what might be next steps. Then again, week 23, PBA and indicators for the future. So we will, in a way, continue the work that we started today. As Dani mentioned at the beginning, this is a process, meaning that we need to put some effort and to continue our joint effort and discuss these aspects, so that when the moment will come and we will have some more clear understanding, and we have the final final document of the regulation and not to speculate or to have assumption on how might it look like, then we are prepared and see how to further bring the programming process ahead. And then November, we have the certified training evaluation for practitioners will take place online with a final meeting that is foreseen in Germany. And on top of all these events and activities, we still need to have a better understanding whether we will have a similar process work with the programs together with the Commission related to the indicator fishes. You mentioned it also earlier on that this was a successful exercise with Interact programs, Interact and Commission colleagues to have a better understanding on how the indicators will look like, but also interpretation, counting, rationale, consistency, robustness, etc. So we need to understand how and when this process will be started and whether our support will be needed. So as soon as we will have some more clarity on this, we will be more than happy to inform the community and to join forces so that we have something similar, some supporting element documents also in the next programming period when it comes to indicator. And with this being said, I think we reached the end of this online session. We thank you all for being here. It's almost 3 and some more time that we are stick into the screens and we are discussing. It was very insightful to have all these discussions together, reflections together. And as Maurice said at the very beginning, this is a very informal exchange as it is with friends, which helps to reflect more, to see maybe other perspectives which we didn't consider, and to build this joint knowledge so that we can afford the next steps a bit more easily and in a more efficient way. I would like to thank all the colleagues, especially the audience, for being with us and staying with us until now. The colleagues from the Commission, Ivanka, Thea, Mate and Chris, for all the valuable insights and inputs that you shared with us. And Danny, for the great work done. Phil, for the great work done. And all the other colleagues that supported in preparation of this event. And the last from my side would be, as you know, we have a very short evaluation form. We are also simplifying, but we really need your feedback on that. So please take a moment, fill it in, only 5 questions. And if some other questions or reflection might pop up after you digest all the information, feel free to drop us a line. We will be more than happy to come back to you within certain limitations to the best of our knowledge, of course. So thanks again, and we wish you a nice afternoon.